Hello again. One of the things which I find amusing is that because I am very broad-minded and tend to get on with everybody, this infuriates some of the more narrow-minded left-wing types. It is suggested that I hate people from Eastern Europe, for instance, and yet in the description to this video I give a link to a friendly debate I had with a woman called Alex Kosciuta in Romania, who is by way of being a fan of mine. Watch the video and see if it looks as though we hate each other. In the same way, of course, because I am a supporter of Israel, some folk claim that this must mean that I hate Arabs or that I'm Islamophobic. This is even funnier, and I thought that I might talk a little about the absurdity of this idea in particular, partly by chance, but also, I must confess, by design. I was present in the Middle East in places which were very much in the news in the 1970s. For example, when President Sadat of Egypt visited Israel for the first time in 1977, I was in Jerusalem. During the Camp David talks in September and October 1978, the following year, I was in Damascus and then Beirut when the fighting flared up there. And of course, the following year, in May 1979, when Israel and Egypt signed the peace treaty, I was living in the northern Sinai and was there when there was rioting and disorder among those settlers who opposed the treaty. I mention this because it leads up to how I have ended up being invited to the Finsbury Park Mosque, a hotbed of Islamism, to celebrate Eid. I lived in Sinai on a settlement called Talmei Yosef, which is part of a group of Moshavim, along with Nativa Surah and State Netzam. These places no longer exist. They were right on the border and in some cases inside the Gaza Strip. So when Sinai was handed back to Egypt, they were all demolished. The nearest town was called Rapha, and I used to go there quite often. I had a lot of dealings with the people there and also with the Bedouin who were in and around the town. There's a mosque there, which I quite took to and found a very restful place to pray. Of course, we were all turfed out of Gaza and the Sinai, and so I lost touch with the people in Rapha. A year or two ago, I thought that one way of forming a new connection with the town, just for old time's sake, would be to sponsor an orphan there, sending a certain amount each month. I could only do this via a Muslim charity, which is connected with Finsbury Park Mosque. One amusing aspect of this is that the money I give each month has to be channeled to Hamas, and so technically I'm breaking the law which forbids the funding of terrorist groups. I often think how ironic it would be if I, of all people, were to end up being accused of financing Hamas. The result is that the Finsbury Park Mosque assume that I'm Muslim and often send me blessings and remind me of my supposed duties. All this is how I ended up being invited to a get-together there at Eid. It is exquisitely funny, as is the fact that I have dealings with political types in Eastern Europe, apart from Alex Kosciuta. In Hungary, for instance, I have connections with various like-minded folk. I adore the idea that I'm the enemy of Romanians and other people from Eastern Europe. The problem often is with extreme left-wing types and anti-racists that they fall victim to their own propaganda. Having created a bogeyman, as some of them seem to have done with me, they find that they are now incapable of talking about anything to do with me rationally and resort instead to generic insults. I'm sure that those reading the comments made here by some of these individuals will know exactly what I mean. I thought it just might be funny to talk about my supposed Islamophobia and hatred of Eastern Europeans in this context.